Yeah, we just like to pay our respects to the elders from here and past and all over Australia. I've been lucky to work with a lot of good old people, and we thought about those trees as we walked up this morning, those old trees, as was told yesterday. So respects to all the TOs from here especially and all of Australia. We have our chief of the council wanted to come, but he had prior commitments. Marcia knows him, Tobias Aranichi Nungbe, but we've got a video message from him, but he apologised he could not come.
So my dream is everyone to be happy, happy, working together, living together, kids going to school, having a healthy life. That's the most important thing for this community, is to try and target all those things.
Thank you. Wadeye, kanyi ngendel dangarangain no. Yo.
Allah mamna kadadet. Ngara Meachem ga kadadet tukon. Enaji mudak kena waran go camera story. Nanti nak kinyemeno da community Ngala bang Wadeye jim.
The second speaker was Francisco Bunduck. He's a TO from Wadeye, right in town. And he was saying, this is my country right here. And then the third man, Mark Ninnell, he was saying the museum, that's for all of us. And that information's all of ours, all our old-time stories, all of our old history and objects and things like that. Jordan, this is the first time he's been in a public event like this, and he's really nervous, so I'm going to put him on the spot and make him feel really good. He's been very helpful in the community for the last 3 years that he's been there, showing an interest in Aboriginal people and their culture, goes on picnics with them, bought his own car, goes out with people. So many white people these days will not spend $1 to go out and engage with Aboriginal people. A few years ago, our senior TO, Boniface Purgett, said, he was looking around town, I think these white people don't like us anymore. So anyway, I'll pass over to Jordan so he can get his nerves out of the way. He's been helping me with the museum. The main big project at the moment is all our videotapes. We're so frightened about them. So anyway, I'm going to pass over to him. Let him talk.
Hi everyone.
Stand up straight. When I first went to Wadeye, they were saying Karapongoi. And I said, what's this Karapongoi? You're a tall, skinny fellow like a snake.
I'd just like to say thank you to Melbourne University for inviting me here. It's a real honour to stand and learn from people who have been in the field for so long. So I just want to say a few things about Thamarrurr. It started basically as a way for the community to have equal representation in the whole community, because before it was just the one tribe making all the decisions, and people said, no, we can't do that. We can't carry on like that. So we're going to make a governance system that includes all the clan groups, and so people can make informed decisions about what's going on in their own community. So we've got there's 20 different clan groups in Wadeye, and so the council is made up of one person from each group. So they get together and make all the decisions. And so there's also three different ceremonial groups, and the directors of TDC, there's two from each ceremonial group, and actually I'll leave it at that. But I'll come back to the museum stuff later. I'll let Dean talk.
Hello, everybody. So I work for TDC. I'm a communications and information officer with them. I've only been there since January, but I've had unbelievable amount of support and welcoming to the community, which is a lot more than I ever expected. So basically, my job consists around the Murrumbidgee Mutmut project, which is this little table right here. So it's basically Murrumbidgee Mutmut translates to communication information, like loosely. And so the museum digitisation work is part of that framework. And it's basically what's the story, which is the interior of the diagram there, and then how do we tell that story, which is the outside there, which is like broadcasting visually and audio. So the local TV, the local radio, the museum itself, education training and cultural training at the school, music performances, because music is a massive aspect to the Wadeye community. So I just a brief overview of how the digitisation work fits into TDC itself and how we're working with Mark and the museum to get that all going. So I'll pass it on to Mark because I'm not a public speaker either. I'm kind of a little nervous as well. So, so go ahead, Mark.
Right. It was very interesting listening to James this morning talking about the fire story. I'll come back to that, but the name of the museum, Kanamkek-Yile Ngala Museum. Kanamkek means rainbow, and it's not rainbow serpent, but rainbow traditional chief was a man. This brief story of this is a very long story, but there's many levels to it. But it comes back to that fire. Rainbow, two daughters promised in marriage to a little bat called Chinnaman. Anyway, the story goes on and on. Chinnaman couldn't wait for the girls to be handed over to him, so he wanted to take a shortcut. Anyway, long and short, gets to it. The bat speared the rainbow. Chinnaman speared Kanamkek. Kanamkek fell down. And anyway, I was just lucky. The last old TO who lived on that country took me up there. There was only him and myself in 1986. So it was really touching when the old man was crying as he was telling me this stuff and showing me the different stones. Righto. Anyway, the long and short is, when he was wounded and mortally, the rainbow realised he was going to die. He said, well, I'm below this. These people didn't look after me. The story is about all the tribes of the region around Port Keats. Everybody gathered together for this big song and dance, big ceremony. So Rainbow said, I'm going down into this river and I'm going to take the fire with me. He put a headband on, put most of the fire out. The last couple of little sticks he put on his head. He was just sneaking into the water. Very similar story, but slightly different. Pied Butcherbird, he's our messenger up there. Hey, Rainbow, Kanamkek, what are you doing? You going to put the fire out? No, you didn't look after me. Anyway, you were talking about a falcon picked up the fire. Well, in our story, falcon picked up the fire and took it off and dropped it on a little hill a bit further east. And there's one little hill where the fire fell down, burned a little bit, but the fire went out. And all the men, quick, you mob, we're going to do something about this fire. What are we going to do? No one knew what to do. Finally, one bloke got an idea. Let's try this. Got a couple of sticks. Got the fire going. Beauty. Sacred site for fire. That little hill never has any grass on it. Wet season, dry season, no grass ever grows because that's the sacred site for the fire. So very similar, a little bit story about the fire. Falcon grabbing the fire. Anyway, naming the museum. Back in the early 90s, the old people wanted to look after cultural stories for the school and for the, as Pius Luckin used to say, for the children. So we want to make a museum. They wanted to make the museum. The people wanted the museum first. They asked us to help. Where the museum is now is an old hospital building made by the people themselves with one lay missionary in the mid-60s. So the hospital had we had a new hospital up the road. So we got the building, meetings outside. We got a nice park out the front of the museum, green grass. Different language groups, 7 language groups. Not all sitting down there, but we're sitting in a number of different language groups. I could understand a bit of the Murrunpata, but the other languages, I couldn't understand a single word. But they're all talking friendly to each other and amongst themselves and to each other. Finally, Claude Nargic at the end said, right, we got it. There was discussions about white fellas from here and there. I said, you want a keeping place or a sacred place or what do you want? No, Claude said, we want a museum. Okay. And he said, this is it. Kanamkek, under Kanamkek, everybody united. Traditional story. When Kanamkek died, everybody dispersed. So tribes gone this way, that way. Then he went on to say, in real life, what's happening? Before the mission, we were scattered. Here, there, Lejeune, Averne, Bradshaw, that's Timber Creek, Victoria River District. Daly River, Darwin. This is written, documented by Dr. Stanner, who came with Father Doherty, as well as the old people stories. So we got audio tapes from the old people, plus Father Doherty. Anyway, the story goes, as Claude told it, I was there, he said, when Doherty came, we all came back together again. And that's another story. Too many people trying to come in the mission. Then they were fighting to be in the mission. Not fighting because of the mission, but fighting to be in the mission. And one of it was a language story, misunderstanding in the wartime. One little tribe, Magati-Care mob, came in. They were just discussing how far they were going to dance with a traditional object. But the Murrumprata TOs of the land couldn't understand. They said, maybe you might bad-mouthing us. Big spear fight. And that little tribal group got wounded. There's the old man telling me this story because he said, I want to tell you how we lost our language. He said, told me that story. He said, we really want to live in this mission instead of being out in the bush. So he said, it's my fault, me and my brothers. We spoke Murrumprata for respecting for them because we're on their land, and we forgot to speak our language to our kids at home in the camp. So he was so sad. But some other family groups, they did remember to keep speaking to their kids in their own languages as well as Murrumprata. So Magadi-Care language nearly got lost, but we've recovered a fair bit because his nephew was on bush holidays. The mission always encouraged bush holidays and weekends picnics. They want every person out of town so they wouldn't be hanging around town. They want people to keep going hunting and keep their cultural stories alive. So when Aloysius Ditton Kungal was about 12 years old, say that with respect to his name, because he used to work closely with me and his father, he said, hey, he heard his dad and his uncle talking. Hey, what's this language? Because he'd been in a dormitory. He thought the whole world was English or Murrumprata. 12 years old, he heard this other language. What's that language? And his dad told him, oh, sorry, son, that's your real language. So after that, Aloysius took a real interest in it. And it was from Aloysius and his other mate, Damien Maidry Tunmuck, who's still alive. Those two had the idea about endangered languages preservation for Wadeye. So it came from those two Aboriginal blokes when they were about 12 years old. When they were about 25 years old, they had the idea. But yeah, so anyway. So under the mission, they tried to keep the hunting and that skills alive, but I'll keep this story short because I get in trouble. My first job at Port Keats, help out with the mechanics and the workshop and everything, but the other half of the job was Pat Dodson said, there's your truck, weekends and holidays, everybody out of town. So anybody who didn't have a car or a boat, that was my job to make sure we took them somewhere. So that's how I started learning stories and bush foods from old people. And I heard later Phil Kenyon, he was at Daly River, missionary before me. He helped start Pepe Minardi with Harry Wilson. And I only heard the story from Phil a couple of years ago. Same story. He was told by Bishop O'Loughlin, no kids hanging around. Everybody, kids and elders all together going bush. So that was good. But then we had, from the old tip trucks, we progressed to big cage trucks we called bush buses, like a cattle truck. Much safer, cage on the back so dogs and things didn't fall off. We didn't lose any kids falling off, but dogs and things fell off from time to time. But anyway, so we had these big bush trucks, cage trucks. Everybody loved them. You could put everybody in the back. We had pets, including a cow, chooks and everything used to go here or there. Anyway, really good. You come back from hunting, you got wallabies or you got geese or you got crabs, and the saltwater juice out of crabs is not very good in cars. But cage truck, you get home, hose it out, and you're ready to go again tomorrow. But in their wisdom from Canberra, national safety road rules, they are banned. You must have 140 kilometre an hour troop carriers now that carry 7 people. So hence, Aboriginal culture throughout remote Australia is getting lost because we can't transport kids to country. So that's one of my big beefs. Transport to country. How can you keep your cultural connection if you can't go to your country? So that's one point I keep liking to tell politicians. Anyway, so we're just lucky in Wadeye. We've got one of the biggest collections in remote Australia. We've got the stories from the old people who were in Darwin, befriended by the missionaries, looked after them. Then the government asked about the idea of a mission. Turn this off. 1 minute ago, righto. Okay, so the government had the idea and asked the missionaries, could you start a mission in Port Keats, try and halt the drift to the Tuttle area? So they said, well, they mightn't want us. So anyway, they went and saw the people who were in Darwin and said, what do you think? Yep, we think that's a good idea. So they went together in the boat, 1934, had a look around, spoke to people around the area. Everybody was happy, yep. What's his name? Nunima got himself a wife when he was there, so he went back a married man. Then the next year, 1935, when Stanner heard about Doherty and joined in with Doherty and the old people, and then some of them Columbrate looking around, he said, hey, there's an old lady telling me a story, I had to walk home from Darwin. Why? Oh, no room on the boats for us, we had to walk. But my sister, my dad carried her. Anyway, Nunima and his wife, they walked back. They said to Doherty, you've got too much stuff for these boats, we'll have to walk back, we'll wait for you. So they walked from Darwin to Port Keats and waited for the missionaries to come later on. So there's been working, as the word's been mentioned many times, working together. So Port Keats is a different history to most places where the Aboriginal peoples picked the site for the mission and brought the missionaries down. So as I say, we're just so lucky we've got information, language, culture, documents, things. And now Tobias used to be at the principal at the school, and he asked me years ago, make sure save our stuff for us. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.